two of the most important things at being a good lawyer, I think, is approachability and authenticity. Dolly Parton has a great quote that says, "Find out who you are and do it on purpose." Don't be somebody you're not, right? Be you. And if you're you, it's very easy to build that brand.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Prachtical Law podcast. I'm Christopher Pratt, owner and founder of Pratt Injury Lawyers out of Anderson and Greenville, South Carolina. Prachtical Law provides actionable insight to practitioners and regular folks on how they can improve their lives, respond to legal challenges, and grow their business. Today, I'm very lucky and fortunate to have my good friend Trey Harrell here with us of Trey Harrell Law Offices. Good to see you, man.
It's good to be here.
Thanks
for
for coming and having us, hosting us.
Yeah.
We are taking the show on the road today, and we are in Charleston. We're at Trey's office, and we are going to talk today about the business of law, building a brand. We're going to learn about Trey's journey and get some actionable insights and practical advice from you, Trey. So welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. And before we dive into all that, you came down to Charleston, and the age-old story is in Greenville, you ask, who's your family? In Columbia, you ask, what do you do for work? But in Charleston, you ask, what are you drinking? So I felt like I needed to give you a little gift for coming.
You are too kind, and listen, this will be well received
yes.
from many
but make
of us.
sure it's after you get back to the upstate, not on the way. Yeah.
Definitely. You're an angel, sir.
Yes.
So I'm going to put this over here, but thank you, Trey. So I was so excited when you and I started talking about this and the opportunity for you to come on here because I have admired your brand not only as your friend, but just as another personal injury trial lawyer. We were talking on the way down here. I love Trey Helps. So share with us, a little bit about you, how you arrived at the point we are now, and just tell us about Trey.
Yeah, sure. What Trey Helps is kind of our overarching philosophy. But before we dive into a little about me, I'm very blessed to have been born and raised in Charleston. And I've also been blessed throughout my career to work for some phenomenal lawyers and have them as mentors. From everybody from I clerked for Judge Nicholson, worked for David Pasco, worked for Pete Strom, worked with Mark Pepper, worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office with Peter McCoy. I've been very, very blessed throughout my career to do that before hanging my own shingle. And so to have that and what's a constant silver lining through all of those individuals and that I learned from is they care about the communities they're involved in and they want to help. And I think that's kind of what kind of guided our vision and our purpose to kind of come up with the Trey Helps brand, which is more than just a brand. It's I'm sure Barbara Seymour is going to love the fact that I'm about to say this, that you can't say Trey wins or Trey fights. You can't say Chris wins or Chris fights, and it's kind of one of those things where while we do have great results for our clients, just like you do, the main thing we do is help people.
Amen.
People come to us when they're on their worst day. Like nobody wants to call a personal injury lawyer's office.
Absolutely
right?
not.
Unless it's a salesperson.
Right. We get tons of those.
Yeah,
but
they call us all the time, but nobody wants to call us. And so we really need to take the mindset as you're not calling me because something good happened. So let me try to help you get in a better philosophy. And that's kind of how we do it. And being born and raised in Charleston, we're able to utilize the Trey Helps philosophy to do a lot of charity work as well. And so we're just very, very fortunate with that.
I love it. So I want to take a step back. I want to talk more about that.
Yeah.
But let's take a step back and tell me, when did you open Trey Harrell Law Offices?
Yeah. We opened it in the fall of 2020 when, nothing was going on, right?
Right.
There was nothing going on in the world at that point. But I had been very blessed prior, like I said, working with all those folks and learning from them, that I had the opportunity to understand how to go into this. And more importantly than all that, I have an extremely patient, very, very phenomenal wife who trusts me and lets me go do these things. And we just decided in the fall of 2020 that it was time to get back into private practice. And we did it and went for it. And and when we opened in 2020, it was just me by myself.
Right.
Up here, I had an empty office in Herald Square that I was able to utilize, and just me by myself. We were practicing the joke threshold law.
Yeah, right.
Which everybody does when they hang their own shingle. Whatever you can get through the threshold,
you'll take.
You'll take.
I always said, if you had $300 in a possum in a cage, I'd be your lawyer.
100%.
So
Yeah,
that was just kind of the way it went.
Well, that's how it had to be, because you're in a situation when you go out on your own, nobody's coming. There's no cavalry to help you.
Right.
Like you're taking that that stress and that onus on yourself, and you got to thrive on it. And you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Tell me about your growth to now. I mean, how big's the team now?
Yeah. Right now we've got about 10 folks working for us. We've got 3, myself and 2 other lawyers.
Right.
And we've just grown strategically through that point
Sure.
since 2020. I like to hire folks that are going to stick around for a long
Sure.
time. My first hire as an executive assistant, somebody I need to answer the phones and do all that, is now our marketing director who's standing over there making sure I don't say anything too stupid right now. Right. And so it's just kind of one of those things that we've been very blessed to bring on very good people
Sure.
that have really helped us grow at the rate we're growing.
Gotcha. Now that's an interesting transition, not to the personal injury side, but what made you just say, hey, we're going to specialize on or really focus our case, the cases we handle on auto accidents?
Well, we're going to focus, not specialize, right?
Right.
Isn't that one of
I
those
said
rules?
that. That's
Yeah.
right. I had to back that up a little bit, right? But yeah, those are the cases you primarily handle.
It's just one of those things that's kind of what I knew and what I understood. You know, my father and my grandfather were insurance agents.
Right.
My uncle was an insurance defense lawyer. So I've kind of grown up around that world, and I guess I'm the black sheep, right?
Right.
That's
Because
why
you're doing plaintiff's work.
I do the other side.
Right.
But it's just kind of something that I just always understood and saw the problems and the flaws and realized it was somewhere where we could help. So I just decided that's kind of where we wanted to focus and dive in. And, you know, I think a big issue with law practices and folks going out is, I joked about threshold law, how we started, but I think it's a very important thing that when you're practicing and you're doing your practice, that you understand how to do a certain area of that and go for it. You got to remember that confidence is not competence, right? And I think that's kind of why we zoned into that. You know, when you're starting out, you got to do what you got to do to feed your family. And you're spending those extra hours when you're doing something for an estate or a criminal case. You're doing that extra work to do that research. But I think as you get more focused and more streamlined onto something in particular, you can get even better at helping your clients that way. And I think that's kind of the issue. So you've got to stay humble in doing all this and realizing that confidence is not competence and guiding that route.
I couldn't agree more. You know, I tell folks all the time, and I have a bad vice, and that is every once in a while I'll take a case, usually for a friend or a family member that's outside of my practice area. And every time, Trey, I don't feel like I do a very good job for the client. I feel like it takes me 3 hours to do what would take me 30 minutes if I really was competent in that area, right?
Yeah.
And so I constantly am telling myself, you know, Chris, stay in your lane, do what you're good at, do what you're best at, and hand off those clients to the tons of competent lawyers in that field if they're somewhere outside your practice area. So,
and as you're growing it, hand off those clients. But, you know, it's kind of one of those things, as you're growing your practice, don't take cases you can't necessarily handle, refer them out.
Yes.
Because from just a business standpoint, half of a watermelon is better than all of a grape.
Absolutely.
Right? Not only is the client going to get better service, which if the client gets better service, they're going to call you later on, that you're making sure that you're making a good, smart business decision so that you can feed your family and that you can take care of your employees, right?
I absolutely agree. You know, sometimes I think as lawyers, the old saying is we're not very good business people as a profession, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's true. And I think lots of times we focus on that. We focus on the whole grape and not half a watermelon.
Yeah.
We don't look at the big picture like we should. And that kind of ties into what I really want to talk about today. And that's, you talk about building your firm, but really building your brand. Yeah. And that's what I'm so impressed with you is you have this great brand. And so tell me, what are the underlying factors of that you guys have focused on to try to create that?
Well, I think when you're building a brand, Dolly Parton has a great quote that says, find out who you are and do it on purpose.
Right. Love that.
Don't be somebody you're not, right? Be you, and if you're you, it's very easy to build that brand. There's an age-old joke, you know, Ric Flair, right? WWE wrestling, that's brand, right? Those guys are brand builders.
Oh yeah,
right. And Ric Flair built his brand on Rolexes and partying, and because that's what he was.
Absolutely,
right? He didn't have to fake
dealing,
it.
You know, he was the man.
Kiss stealing, jet flying,
Right.
yeah. And that's kind of the thing that you got to think about. And I don't think any lawyer should be Ric Flair.
No, your point is well made. It's like, you know, you have to be your authentic self.
Yeah.
it shows in, I think, your marketing and your communication with the public is if you're trying to be something you're not, they see it.
Yeah.
And it comes across as phony.
Two of the most important things at being a good lawyer, I think, is approachability and authenticity, right? Because if you're approachable, your clients aren't going to be afraid to call you on the phone to ask you the questions so you can get the information. And if you're authentic, they know you're not going to be blowing smoke at them, right? And so I think those are two of the most important factors in building that brand. And for us, I'm from Charleston. I like to help people. So that's kind of what we do. That's kind of the goal and where we go. And, in building the brand, I kind of took a step back and where we got to Trey Helps is kind of one of those things that it gave us the ability, we could make sure we were compliant with the bar.
Right.
Because that's
right, sure.
very important
That
in
was
any
a big
brand
deal. Right.
that you're going to build. And also it could give us the ability to do other things. A good friend of yours and a friend of mine, David Ayler, who I think people don't give enough credit for somebody who was so community focused in what he did. Remember when he, the Boy Scout trailer, somebody stole the Boy Scout trailer,
Right.
and he just bought a Boy Scout trailer.
That's it.
for
I
those
do
guys,
remember
right?
that. Yeah.
I mean,
that's how he was.
That was the kind of guy he was. Is with what we are, is we want to do that kind of stuff. I'm gonna break a little news here. With one of the things that we're doing is we've got a new marketing thing that we're about to go out with that is nominate your favorite teacher, and we're going to send them to the iHeart Music Festival.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful,
So,
wonderful thing.
Anybody can nominate their favorite low country teacher.
Yeah.
That's going to come out soon. You can go to treyhelps.com and you'll be able to see all that. Nominate them, and we can do it. Is giving away a teacher trip on brand for an auto accident attorney? Probably not. But is it something that deserves to happen for these teachers? 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it just shows, look, it just shows you're engaged, right,
Yeah.
in the community. I love the community involvement piece. We put a big emphasis on
Yeah.
that in my law firm as well, because, and I think any business should do that, whether you're a tire shop
Yeah.
or a law firm, and particularly if you're a law firm, because you're out there advocating for people and really trying to bring a sense of justice. And that kind of takes me to the next thing I want to talk about, building a brand.
Yeah.
And that's the client experience, right? Like, one of the things that I think, particularly in the plaintiff's world, that some law firms have done in error is they go out, they dump a bunch of money into marketing, and they may have a good, slick brand video or brand marketing, but they haven't developed their brand once the clients come in,
Yeah.
right? So they spend all this money on marketing, the clients come in, they have a terrible experience, and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm not calling them back,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
it's like, wow, you're forgetting the whole back half of the piece, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so tell me about what you guys do, on the actual working the cases and working with the clients to maximize that client experience.
I think that one of our key philosophies is, I heard somebody say this one time, that if you can make "I'm so glad I called them"
Yes.
attached to your name, whether you can help them or not,
Right.
whether they're calling about a property damage case or a landlord tenant issue or whatever, if you can give them some help
Yep.
in the very beginning, that kind of sets the tone for the client experience. I think another big thing is just calling folks back.
Oh,
I mean,
100%, right?
as weird as that is to say, and as easy as that seems to do, practicing law it's busy. Handling clients we do, it takes time. And so some of that stuff can kind of fall to the wayside, but you got to make a point to do it. We regularly, I'll put a time block on my calendar that I'm going to call folks back from X time to Y time just to make sure that I get it done, because it's so crucial. Or driving home, making sure call people from the truck, whatever you got to do, just make sure you call folks back and just talk to them. Because we went to school. We've been doing this for decades, right? This is sometimes the first time they've ever had any experience with a lawyer ever in their lives.
Ever at all.
Yeah.
And there's two things that strike at me. One is a great piece of advice I heard once is have courage and return your damn phone calls.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah,
it's just,
100%.
if you do nothing else, just
Yeah.
have those two things and you'll do a pretty good job as a lawyer. The second thing I think that's interesting about, clients and the client experience is, how do we nurture them even after they're a client,
Yeah.
right? Like, our whole goal, and we really try to put emphasis on it, is obviously giving them good experience, returning phone calls,
Yeah.
like you said, but also once they hopefully have had a good result and are happy with us, don't just let that go out into the ether, right?
Yeah.
Make them part of your family and part of your law firm community, for lack of a better word, forever. Right?
Exactly.
And so, because as we all know, where your best cases come from?
Yeah,
Word
former
of mouth.
clients.
Yeah, former clients, word of mouth,
Yeah,
right?
word of mouth.
So tell me about that. Do y'all do anything with clients at the end of the case to monitor and track or keep in touch with them?
Yeah, we do. We've taken a break for the summer, but we do Trey Helps happy hours.
Yeah, love that.
And we invite folks from around the community, but make a big emphasis on inviting former clients out so we can catch up with them. We can talk to them. We can kind of engage with them outside of that. We try to do a lot of other things to provide it. One of the things that we do for them and for folks that have called in is we're real big with our Trey Helps You Uber vouchers.
Oh, yes, I want to talk to you more about that. But okay, go.
We'll talk more about that, but that's kind of one of the things is just to let people know that we're here and we're still doing things. And I think that's the key thing because nobody wants to get bombarded with, hey, if your best friend was in an auto accident, make sure you call us.
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly. It's got to be something different, right?
It's got to be something of value, something that people want to do, something that keeps them engaged, and something that's actually giving back to them.
Yes.
It's not just we all do the newsletters and the emails and all that stuff, constant contact, MailChimp, all that. But you got to do something of value that makes it actually worthwhile for them to remember who you are. Not only do a good job, but you got to also make sure they give them a reason to remember you.
Sure, right. Just stay top of mind, right?
Yeah.
We're doing a giveaway right now. We sponsor the Rock the Country concert that comes to Anderson.
Yes.
So, like Anderson doesn't have a lot of big concerts, but they've got Hank Williams Jr., Kid Rock, like
that's
the
gonna be an
whole scene.
That's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be 1,000,000 degrees. But besides that, it's gonna be fun. All right, before I forget though, I want to talk about these Uber vouchers and just I saw this on your social and I immediately was like, again, Trey's come up with a really good idea. And so tell us about it. How did you come up with this and educate us on what exactly?
Yeah. Well, the Trey Helps You Uber voucher program, we do it periodically around big holidays where we offer around $10 off. We just did 4th of July and we did 1776, but normally it's $10 off. And we push them out. You just go to treyhelps.com or Trey Helps You on social media and you can see when we're doing them. But how did it come about? We were just having a conversation about things we could do that would actually help. Right. So when you're giving somebody something of value, it has to be something that actually
improves their life.
Right. Yeah. That's my kind of logic from it. And in South Carolina, we have a massive drinking and driving problem.
Oh, it's terrible.
Insane.
I could do a whole podcast episode
just on that. Yeah. And I mean, you got to remember the whole reason, and I'm sure we'll get to tort reform at some point in this, but one of the big arguments was that was the issue. And I think that's the problem. It wasn't the other issue.
It's not the civil justice system. It's the fact that we have too many drunk drivers.
Too many drunk drivers. And we've got to resolve that. And that's kind of how we talked about it and thought about it. And it was kind of one of those things that we figured out we could do it and started pushing them out and had a phenomenal response. For 4th of July, we had 193 folks claim the voucher.
That was my next question. Yeah. So 193 folks scanned it and got the $17.76, the discount.
Or utilized or however,
however they needed to.
However they needed to. Some people didn't use all of it because they were just going from spot to spot.
Sure.
And make it clear, we don't know where you're going. Right. We don't know anything about it other than that person.
You just get the bill.
Yeah, we just get the bill.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's kind of one of those things, though, that in doing that, I mean, think about that for a second. When we started it, we'd have 15, 20 people get the voucher, but there was 193 people that made a conscious decision not to plan ahead and not to get behind the wheel because they get the vouchers earlier in the week, not just on the 4th of July.
Right.
And so they had a conscious decision to do that. That's how you're helping the community. That's how you're making a point to do it because even if the people didn't utilize the voucher and they claimed it and they planned ahead or whatever, more people scanned it, more people paid attention to it, more people were planning ahead. I'm not going to get behind the wheel after I've had too many. That's a win for the low country.
Total win. Total win for the low country. And, it's one of those things we'll never know, but very well could have saved somebody's life.
Very well. And I've had other lawyers have joked with me, why are you doing that? Because when you was doing criminal defense work, you're preventing DUIs, which that hurts your business, or you're preventing a traffic accident. And I tell them they're morons. I would love to prevent that. I would love to do something else. I don't want that. You know what I mean?
100%. I tell people all the time, insurance companies, if they really wanted to put us all out of business, just do right by your people.
100%.
We'd be done. We'd be done.
We could do a whole. That would get us in trouble. We have a lot of edits on that one. Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. So let me ask you that question because I kind of went through the same thing. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, and this was kind of about the brand conversation. I did threshold law when I first started out, criminal defense, I do DUI defense, whatever. I can't remember exactly when it was. It was probably around 2020 where we just made the decision, hey, it's a little bit too much of a conflict brand. We're only going to represent victims,
Yeah.
right? Like we're not going to do DUI defense.
Mhm.
Not that I have any problem with anybody that does, because very critical need
Well,
for it.
it's very critical. I
Yeah.
mean, people's rights need to be protected.
Exactly.
On all
and
spectrums,
on
yeah.
all spectrums. But we just chose, because it just made it cleaner.
Yeah.
You know, what we were saying is, hey, we're victims' rights attorneys. So did you make that same decision? I mean, how did that go? Did you kind of transition from that when you were going to the auto accident?
That it's kind of funny about that transition. We were, my wife and I were driving over I-526, and I'd gotten a bump on my cell phone where it said, so and so got a massive verdict.
Right.
It was a Post and Courier news alert, and I looked at my wife and I said, "Don't worry, honey. One day we'll get ours."
Right. Right.
And she snapped back at me and said, "Yeah, and it's not going to be in estate planning." And so, I mean, that wasn't the reason we made the shift, but
Right,
it's kind
right.
of funny. You know, why we made the shift was that was just what I knew. Coming from a family, an insurance family,
Sure.
I knew it. I understood it. It was something I could go down. Don't get me wrong. I miss practicing criminal law. I miss
I do
the
too
conversations
sometimes.
and the stories.
Yeah, it's the best stories
Yeah.
that come out of criminal law, for
Phenomenal stories, and I do miss that. But we just kind of made the decision that auto accident was the route that we need to go, and we do some workers' comp, and we do some slip and falls, and we do those. We can handle some of those, but auto accident. I mean, if you look right back there, Trey Harrell, auto accident attorney. That's how we do it. Make it very easy. Make the brand very clearly and concisely defined.
sure. Right.
And so that's kind of where we kind of led down that avenue.
I love it. Well, look, we had a good conversation
Yeah.
on brand. I want to transition. One thing I like to do in every episode is it's called Practical Law.
Yeah.
And so, let's talk about some practical tips.
Mm-hmm.
Folks are out there all the time, and this is a kind of a loaded question, but what is the most important thing a person that's seriously injured? I'm not talking about a parking lot wreck or something like that. I'm talking about somebody that's seriously injured in an automobile accident. What's the most important thing they can do right after it?
In my opinion, the first thing you need to do following an accident is make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Like just
Right.
plain and simple. No, I mean, but that's kind of the thing I think that gets lost in a lot of the advertising. A lot of people say, if you go look at TikTok or Instagram, and I'm not knocking anybody for how they do it,
Sure.
but we need to let people know that that's the most important thing, and also make sure the people in your car
Right.
are okay, and check on the other people
Right.
that were injured.
Be normal, good
like,
human
be a
beings.
good human being. No, don't say my bad or my fault.
Right.
Right. Even if it is your bad or your fault, don't say
Right.
that. But it's kind of that. And then the second most important thing is to make sure you got things documented.
Yeah.
If you're able to do it, make sure somebody documents. Make sure you properly explain everything to the law enforcement that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you do the things to protect yourself. And if you're seriously injured or there's serious damage to your vehicle, you need to reach out to an attorney quickly.
Sure.
If there's not serious damage or you're not seriously injured, if you get any pushback from the insurance company at all,
Right.
reach out to a lawyer immediately.
So
That would be
and
my
that's
advice.
it. No,
Yeah.
and that's it. I mean, I think I put myself in the consumer's
Yeah.
shoes every once in a while, and there's so many of us out there.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many people doing what we do. This, as you hear all the time, there's billboards, commercials, you digital ads. As a practical advice, what should people be asking these law firms they're
Yeah.
interviewing? Particularly if we're talking it's a death case or a serious case. What kind of things should they be asking?
I think that you need to, when you're talking to your lawyer or the law firm, you need to make sure that they are approachable, right? That you can talk to them, because you're going to have to talk to them a lot, and make sure that they seem authentic, because you're going to go through it, right?
Sure.
Particularly in a serious case that insurance company's going to want to fight. They're not going to want to stroke that check off the rip. You're going to go through it, or you got to be prepared to go through it. And so you need to make sure you have somebody you don't mind being in a foxhole with,
Absolutely.
for lack of a better term.
Sure, no, that's
right.
it. I agree.
And I think that that's just kind of the factor. And we've got a lot of great lawyers in this state, right?
Sure.
Find somebody who fits with you. I think that kind of goes into, as we were talking about building a brand and building a practice. One of the key things is you need to know your market as a lawyer. On top of that, and you need to understand who you're going to talk to, and who you're going after, and who's going to feel comfortable coming to you. And that's who you need to go after, because there are a lot of other firms out there that do phenomenal work that other people will identify with. That's who you need to call.
Right.
I want you to call me. Clearly, I want to handle your case. I want to represent you. But the most important thing is making sure you feel comfortable with your attorney. Because if you don't feel comfortable with your attorney, it's going to be a long, annoying process.
You're right. If the trust breaks down between
Yeah.
a client and a lawyer, I mean, it's just it makes the entire representation almost impossible.
Yeah.
You got to have that trust.
You gotta
right
have it.
there. Well, Trey, I know one thing that matters to you and I that we talk about a lot is tort reform. And so it's kind of our current events section. So let's talk about that. What do you think's coming up on the horizon? You heard anything?
I mean, I think that, big insurance and those groups are going to push again and do what they always do. I think that where we landed this go round is where we needed to be. I think we fixed the liquor liability issue.
Absolutely.
I think the bars and restaurants are happy, and bars and restaurants who are doing the right thing are able to get their rates
Get their
down.
rates way down. Yeah,
Way
they
down.
should be able to.
Now, the question is, even though they should be able to, are the insurance companies going to actually lower the rates?
Right?
Like,
They're
are
gonna
we going
do
to have
it.
a Florida situation? A couple days ago, there was an article in Forbes talked about how even though insurance companies promised they were going to lower their rates are still going through the roof.
So on that note, July 1st, and I haven't delved into all the numbers. Some folks I've been talking to have the National Commission of Insurance Commissioners issued their annual report.
Yeah.
And it's really in depth. You should check it out if you haven't. But the folks I've talked to that have really looked through it say Florida is going to serve as a perfect example of why tort reform doesn't work.
Yeah.
The most recent numbers that just came out, 10 days ago, show that the tort reform that happened there 3 years ago now, so it's had 3 years to work its way through, and it has not lowered premiums around. And actually, they were going to argue, and again, I got to get into the specifics of this, but that it's actually caused a whole new series of problems. So I agree. And I do think we solved the liquor liability problem for the bars, because I think that was a quirk in the law that really did unfairly target one industry.
Exactly. The legislature got it right.
They did.
Right. And so that's beautiful about it. You rarely can say that with a lot of stuff in government.
So true.
But they got it right. And so that's awesome. And I think the thing that everybody just needs to remember when it comes to tort reform and the fight and the argument is we have the Seventh Amendment for a reason.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And I mean, I am as conservative as a Republican as can be out there. Everybody knows that. I don't hide that. I think that more Republicans need to pay more attention to being anti-tort reform, because the government doesn't need to regulate that kind of stuff.
100%
So
agree.
that's where it boils down to.
I've always said, there's this argument out there that somehow tort reform is conservative. It's not. It's not a conservative thing. I think anti-tort reform is conservative. And, it'll be interesting to see what they come with. Did I show you the MS-13 ad? I haven't showed you that. Oh, you got to check this out. Yeah. There is an ad that a national group is running. It's like it's one of these elitist DC. They're obviously propped up by the insurance industry, but they've got an ad, and it's so over the top, it'll make you laugh. But it's literally, it says, MS-13 and trial lawyers are conspiring together to raise your insurance rates.
That doesn't surprise me
Right.
at all. That is the least shocking thing that I've heard come out of this tort reform scenario, right? I mean, it's that, and that's the other thing that I would think out. As people who might not be, because I know you got a lot of lawyers from all kinds of folks practicing, other folks listening to this podcast, folks who may not understand personal injury or insurance law, might not be a part of it, need to just pay attention. Whenever any of those ads come out, whether they're on our side or on their side, you need to make sure you do your research.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yes.
Do your research. It's just like with a political ad or anything else. Do your research. People are smart if you actually do your research and dig in, and you can understand and you can see where the flaw is. And what was so beautiful about the tort reform fight we had with the legislators this year is it caused a lot of people to dig in.
Yes.
And when people dug in, the legislature got it right.
I agree.
Like,
and
think about that.
They found out that it was really is just a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of these full overhaul changes they were pushing. I'm interested to see how it plays out. The fact that they're pushing it in so many other states. Georgia just fought it. Texas had it recently. Louisiana. Been talking to some folks down there who have been fighting it hard. And it's just a national playbook. And what I've learned is it really doesn't matter what your specific law is. They'll come up with something and say, oh, we need to change this. We need to tweak this. And it's all just driving towards an end goal of ultimately, I really think they would love it if all personal injury cases were just settled through some kind of an arbitration process, or make it like a workers' comp system.
Certainly they would love that. And the issue is, and as we're talking about this, and we say insurance company this, insurance company that, or anything like that, one thing you got to remember is insurance companies don't have a duty to you and me.
I know.
They have a duty to the shareholders. They have a fiduciary duty.
It's their job to make money.
Yeah, it's their job to make money. So I'm not mad at them for doing that per
100%,
se,
right.
because that's their job, and God bless America.
Right.
Right? But that's what you got to say. So you hit the nail on the head when we were talking about that earlier, is that they would love to see that, because that would be the best possible result for
It'd be a
their shareholders,
boon, right?
and for their folks that they have a fiduciary duty to. So that's just the scenario that is so dead on. And as long as people are paying attention and understand that, you get it.
I agree completely. And oftentimes I think the key to this whole narrative is that insurance companies got a responsibility, like you just said, to make as much money. We as lawyers have a responsibility to get the best outcome for our client, right? And what I think people miss sometimes is they think that the fight is between the lawyers and the insurance company. Well, it's really between the people and the insurance company, because you and I will figure it out. Like, I mean, even if they made it a workers' comp system, you and I, like you said, we'll find something else to do.
Yeah.
It's the person that gets catastrophically injured in a trucking accident, or the person that, God forbid, is paralyzed because of some horrible event, that has their rights taken away. That's the person that really suffers.
Their rights that were given to them, that were enshrined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, right? That were enshrined in that. I mean, and when we're talking, I don't want anybody to say, oh, you're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about the 7th Amendment and the Constitution. No. Separation of powers is another issue.
Right.
Because when you overregulate, there's too much legislative encroachment on the judicial system. So all this stuff was laid out from the very beginning
of time.
And insurance, the big business is coming in trying to tweak it. And that's the problem.
And it's most of these laws too that they come after, like even joint and several liability, it's like this has been around for 150 years, 200 years. I mean, as long as we've been having jury trials.
It's been there.
It's interesting. We'll see what happens coming up this year. I would not be surprised for a renewed push. Now, my hope is that we can talk about some insurance reform. And really kind of doing some things and trying to repair some of the wrongs that we see in our daily practice every day. I really wish there was a way we could hold UIM carriers more accountable, because of the UIM bad faith, in my opinion, is kind of weak. I think we could make that better.
That is a real issue, and I think if we are going to go back into this, you're hitting the nail on the head. Because here's what a lot of people don't understand and don't think about it. If an insurance company can delay your claim for 30 days, 30 days, interest rates the way they are.
Oh, it's crazy.
They're making money. And people are like, oh, that's only $1,000. But if it's $1,000 over 100 cases, over 1,000, that adds up,
dollars
right? And again, their fiduciary duty to get back to their shareholders or their shareholders is purely benefited by their delay. And so that's the problem. So we need to have a serious conversation about that.
I couldn't agree more, because it's the only tool that the citizen has to hold the insurance company accountable is some version of a bad faith law, right? I mean, because otherwise, why wouldn't an insurance company just say, well, let's just try everything? I mean, or maybe we'll pay you on the courthouse steps, but otherwise just forget it. I had a case last year, Trey, where we mediated it in March and they offered us $1.2 million. It was, as you'll see, worth a lot more than that. Nothing changed in the case for 6 months, except for we got up for trial. And we had the gun to their head, so to speak, figuratively speaking. And in 8 days before trial, they went from 1.2 to 5.25 million. And that was just all the play. They were just like, well, they knew they were going to pay. They just said, well, hey, we'll hold on to $4 or $5 million for another 6 months.
And how much money did they make off holding that for 6 months?
Exactly.
I mean, and I'm not mad at them, because that's their job. That's their duty. We have a duty to go get that money for our client.
And call them out
just like
on
they
it.
have a duty to hold it and call them out on it, and to fight the fight we're fighting in the legislature and in that scenario. We have a duty as lawyers to do that. And I just love the fact that so many people in our bar on both sides are willing to stand up and fight that duty.
Oh, I'm with you, man.
And fight
100%.
for that duty.
Well, Trey, look, thank you so much, man. This has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, a blast.
We covered a lot of ground. We talked about brand. We talked about practical advice, and then had a little follow-up on tort reform. And I just really appreciate you being here, man. I taking the time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy, and hosting us, and the bottle of tequila and everything, man. It was awesome.
Well, we appreciate you coming down to Herald Square so we could tape this, and just thanks. And let me say this. Thanks for doing these. I think this is a very underserved market in South Carolina. I think we don't really have a podcast, or we didn't have a podcast, which is probably why you're doing it. Didn't have a podcast to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just necessary. And I think it's really going to be good for the folks that want to be involved in this kind of stuff, from tort reform or just growing practices to serving clients. And thank you for that.
I appreciate it, man. We're going to kind of take the traveling roadshow all over the state and interview a lot of cool people, I think. Well, look, that's going to wrap up episode 4 of Prachtical Law. We had a great conversation with Trey Harrell from Charleston and Trey Harrell Law Offices, and talked about brand, talked about some practical tips that can help you if you find yourself seriously injured. And of course, we talked about some of the current events going on that relate to personal injury law and so-called tort reform. So I hope you'll join us next time. We'll have a brand new guest, and look forward to seeing y'all for episode 5 of Practical Law. Thanks so much.